everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. We are really excited today to be giving you a bonus episode. We're going to be talking about a new show on Disney Plus. We're talking about the new Turner and Hooch. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and I am so excited about who we have here to talk about the show. We have my very good friend and original co-host of this podcast, Amber is back.
What? Amber's back?
Yay!
Yay!
I'm so happy to be podcasting again with you. And how have you been?
Oh, I mean, to be fair, not the greatest. I'm currently recovering from a car accident.
Yes.
So other than that, not the greatest.
Well, I don't think anybody had the greatest year in 2020.
Yeah. I mean, I did lose my job, and now I have a new job, so that's great. But topsy-turvy, but whatever. Yeah. That's not why we're here. We are here to discuss a dog show with someone who doesn't even really like dogs.
Well, see, when you suggested that we cover the show, I was really surprised because up until this, I thought you didn't like stuff with dogs as much as stuff with cats. Yeah,
well, frankly, I do not know what it is about this show that spoke to me, but I am all in on Turner and Hooch.
Yeah. And we're just going to cover the first 5 episodes because there's going to be 11 total, I think. And so then we'll cover the final 6, I guess, next week, I guess whenever, and it'll be in 6 weeks. Whenever the final are done, that's when we'll cover it.
Love it.
Very good. Yeah. Had you seen the feature film with Tom Hanks?
Yes. When I was a kid, I had definitely seen the original Turner and Hooch. And then I actually watched it a year ago, probably, just because it was on Disney Plus. And, you just scroll through Disney Plus when you're having a bad day. And, I liked it fine. It was fun. Tom Hanks is great. So, but I was 0% interested in this reboot, right? And then I got in my car accident, and I think I had to watch all of the television that has been produced in the past 17 years of our lives. So I was like, okay, Turner and Hooch, it's your turn, I guess.
Yes.
And then I loved it. Drooling dog and all, I'm on board.
Yeah. It is really cute. I really enjoyed it. I think the writing is really solid. And hey, were you someone who was a fan of Josh Peck in his Disney Channel days?
I actually never watched his show.
Or Nickelodeon?
Yeah, it's Nickelodeon. I was a Disney girl, a Disney Channel girl, and I wasn't really into the Nickelodeon stuff. So I actually never watched Drake and Josh.
Yeah.
But every clip of that show that I've seen through history, I was like, that kid's funny. The Josh. Yeah.
Do you think that he was a good hire to play Tom Hanks' role? To fit that Tom Hanks?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, I don't think he has the exact charisma that Tom Hanks has, but nobody has Tom Hanks' exact charisma. Yeah. I think he's doing a really good job.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you want in this kind of a thing. You want them to make it their own and not be an exact carbon copy of what was previously done, or what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. And I think he does bring a lot to the character. I think his character, I think what I really like about the show is that I can see so much potential for his Scott character, growth for his character. And I feel like the show is actually a show that will allow him to grow in such a way. Even just in the pilot with him, coming to see the value in the dog.
Right.
It just already shows that the show is willing to let him grow and learn. And that's, what's the point of watching anyone do anything if they're just stagnant?
Yeah. And he's already, even in just that pilot, he already changes quite a bit, and you can tell he's going to be a pretty dynamic character, which is again what you want.
Exactly, especially from your main character, someone who is going to be the face of the show, carrying the show.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I did love where his character started. I liked
Mm-hmm.
the like fastidious doofus loner who like had a name for his robot vacuum.
Right.
Because in fact that is me. I have a shark robot named Bruce that cleans my house for me. So I mean, I just really like I think a lot of I feel like I see myself in a lot of the characters in this show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably why I really like it.
Well, and I think this show is filmed in Vancouver. Vancouver is San Francisco, correct?
Yes, Vancouver for San Francisco.
And so it has a ton of people that we know and love.
That is so
from
true.
The Hallmark world.
Absolutely. And it also has, I don't think Brandon J. McLaren has been in a bunch of Hallmark stuff, but the guy who plays Xavier.
Oh, yeah. He's very funny.
I love him because he was in She's the Man. He was Toby in She's the Man. And, that's like one of my favorite movies of all time. The movie I saw most in theaters.
Well, we also get, we have Vanessa Lenguies. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her last name. Sorry. But she was in a Hallmark movie last Christmas, I believe.
This is going to make everyone sad, but I sort of had to take a break from Hallmark for my emotional well-being, just because I was like overdone, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was dealing with a lot of things. And so I missed that one, but I'll probably go back and watch it because I love her. Yeah.
So it was called Heart of the Holidays. And it was pretty basic. The girl coming back to the small town, kind of thing. But she was very cute in it, and has Corey Sevier in it, who's pretty good. So so she's done a little bit of Hallmark at least. And I agree with you. She is very charming. And immediately you're rooting for her because she is on the side of the dogs, which is very
well. I mean, she is a dog lady. She trains dogs. She has dogs. She loves dogs. She understands dogs.
Right.
So I mean, she's obviously, as far as like the hooch part of the storyline, like very important. Mm-hmm. She's super necessary to the show, but also, I mean, for me, I care the most about the Scott and Erica of it all. Like, I feel so much. I identify so much with the Erica character in that she is like, just like instantly like some dude, and is like, honestly, she's not doing the best job for herself. She's not being her best advocate. As far as like, she's not even really putting herself out there, but she's putting a lot of like, she's investing a lot emotionally into this. She's putting a lot of emotional capital into something, but without even like building anything. She's making a lot of mistakes that
it's just the very like easy to relate to character of the girl just looking across the room and just wanting to have a relationship with this person, but then and like the signals just keep getting missed.
Yeah,
we'll talk more about that when we go through the episodes, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of a Jim and Pam in that way, sort of a situation with her being Jim. Yeah. I just think all of us can relate to having a crush on somebody and you just don't have the courage to do it. You're just sort of watching. It's tough.
And you're just like, you know what, maybe if I just am like there for them and super supportive, eventually they'll see how great I am. Right. I'm going to get super real because nobody who listens to this will actually even know. But so for the past, like starting July of 2020, I was a moderator for a Twitch streamer who I was like legitimately in love with. Okay. He like lived in a different part of this country, whatever. And I was honestly just like there for him. Yeah. All the time. I feel a lot of similarity in the like, he calls and he needs help, I'm here to help. Yeah. And like, and he's just like does not see me for that at all. It was just, anyway, I felt a lot of that dynamic there. I think it's been very therapeutic for me to see her behaviors and recognize those actual behaviors in myself and be like I'm certain it's going to work out for her. in the show, because if it doesn't, I'm going to be furious. But I can also see where what she's doing is not healthy for her.
Right.
And even at the end of this, I mean, I guess we're just talking about all 5 of them in whole, right? Like, so we can spoil the 5th episode. Even at the end of the 5th episode, when she goes to like make that phone call, I think that's like such a good step for her, that she's like now moving past like just being a doormat that wants love, to being like a person who is going to assert themselves and say like, this is sort of where I'm coming from.
Yeah. And her confidence is growing, which is fun to see. And then we also have Becca Tobin playing kind of the other woman in his life, playing Brooke, the attorney who he has a past relationship with. And of course, Becca's been in tons of Hallmark movies.
And the thing I actually really like about what they're doing with Brooke is that she's not like the worst.
Right.
She seems like a perfectly good option. You don't think like, well, why in the heck is Scott even interested about her? Why has he been hung up on her for 5 years? Because you can see it, because she's beautiful, she's kind, she's smart, she's fun. I mean, at the end of this 5th episode, she's not super uptight and rigid. She's like willing to help wash the dog, which is just like a huge mess. So you can see where there's the why they would be a relationship. And I think actually her sort of buttoned down, very tidy exterior and the way that she carries herself really informs where we saw Scott at the first of the series, because he was all about that.
Right. Well, and if it seems like he wasn't that way when they were dating, and now he's tried to become that person.
I think that as well. I think he's tried to become what he thinks she wants. And Hooch is sort of pulling him out of that and sort of pulling him more into himself. And I don't know if that means, they both sort of will grow it. Like, who knows? We haven't reached the end of the show yet. But I think I really like the dog. I don't like dogs, but the dog as a plot device in this show is very effective, because it acts as an inciting incident in all cases. Hooch coming into Scott's life and Erica's life and even Brooke's life is forcing them to accommodate something other than themselves, because unlike Erica, Hooch doesn't just do what he wants for like the other people. Like, Hooch is going to address Hooch's needs before he addresses Scott's needs, which is, people are like, oh, I don't think that's how dogs work, but that's how Hooch works in the story. Like, technically Hooch is sort of, I guess, like an omniscient third person, because he just sort of like knows in advance what we need to do, what's best for the characters, even if the characters don't know themselves. But
and you see Hooch as a dog changing too. Like, he is different by the 5th episode than he is in the 1st episode.
I don't necessarily know that Hooch himself is changing. I just think that as Scott is changing and learning to understand Hooch better, Hooch is more responsive to what Scott needs. It's like Hooch doesn't respond to artifice at all. So the more real Scott is becoming, the more Hooch is responding to Scott.
Yeah, true. Very good. Yeah. Well, let's talk about a few of the other characters. The main
I will
characters.
talk about every character.
Okay. So we also have Jessica, or Jess, played by Kara Patterson. She is Scott's partner, but she is pregnant, very pregnant. And by the end of the 5th episode, she is basically on full desk duty. But what do you think of Jess as a character?
I really like her. I think she's a great female character, which I think is, I kind of hate qualifying like a great female character, but she is. And she's, what I really like about her is that she is sort of the embodiment of what I see as feminism. Because she, she's following her own passions, while also maintaining a relationship that is fulfilling for her with a partner that is supportive. And like, obviously they still disagree. They have disagreements. They were like arguing about like the stroller that they wanted to get. So like, it's not like their life is like perfect and whatever. It just seems very like real and honest. And I think because she is finding fulfillment, you know, in her work or whatever her passions are, and she's following her passions in, you know, having a family and having a strong relationship, because she's coming from that position of like strength and support, she is able to just be very real and confident in what she believes. And it does make her a little bit like, I know more about what's good for you, Scott, than you do yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't mind that because it's coming from a place of love, and she doesn't do it in like a jerk way. And she technically is his mentor. So
I was going to say, she has more experience than him. So that does make sense.
I mean, professionally, but personally, like she's just like being his partner and goofy. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I'm a little bit sad that we are going to not have as much of that dynamic, as I'm assuming she's going to have the baby and have maternity leave or whatever. So they're not going to be partners together. But I do like that it sort of looks like we're going to be getting more Xavier, who I think is a great foil for Scott.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's nice to see somebody that's pregnant without having it be something that stops them from doing what they're, you know, what they want to do with their dream jobs, that they're able to keep being a function. Sometimes there's this thing of like, well, you can't do anything, you can't lift anything, you can't, you know, and I like that she's kind of this character that's still powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would argue that she, of all of the marshals,
Mm-hmm.
is the marshal who is the most powerful, in
Mm-hmm.
that she is the only one who, I mean, Xavier is pretty sure of himself and confident in who he is,
Mm-hmm.
but I think she's maybe even a little bit more so.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about his sister Laura, played by
Yes.
Lindsay Fonesca.
Yes.
And that's an interesting dynamic because she's a vet, right?
Tech.
And a vet tech. She's trying to.
No, she's just a veterinary assistant.
Okay.
Whatever.
She's trying to.
She hasn't taken her test to be a vet tech. That's it's like a whole subplot.
So she's trying to go to school to be a full-time vet, but she also she has a son, and then she also is dealing with they're both dealing with the death of their father. Mm-hmm. And she's the one that's kind of really pushing this sort of investigation into the past, this case that their dad was looking into. Basically, it seems like their dad had one huge case that was very big, and then after that he was kind of relegated to like small town crime and things like that. But he had this one thing that he was investigating before he died.
Well, I mean, I think it makes sense that, you know, to be fair, smaller towns typically don't have big flashy crimes. Mm-hmm. It's not like the little towns in Garage Sale Mystery or Aurora Tea Garden where there's like a big murder every 3 months, like a big complicated murder every few months, which I think just makes sense. Like most of the time there's not like many murders in a very small town. And I don't think
that San Francisco is like some kingpin of organized crime. Like,
well, I mean, San Francisco, sure, but they're not actually from San Francisco. They're from like a smaller town.
Yeah, like Bay Area or something.
Yeah. So I mean, it just makes sense that yes, the dad as the like chief of police in a small town wouldn't have the big flashy career that Scott was looking for.
And I like this relationship between Scott and Laura. I think that they have a very sweet, relatable brother-sister relationship. Would you agree?
Yeah, I really like their chemistry and their dynamic. Mm-hmm. Laura is starting to get into the territory of like, you need to just let police handle things, you goof. Like, because she's not a cop and she's doing all these like cop things, like when she's staking out some criminal mastermind's house, or she was like gonna go into like the drug dealer assault guy's house by herself. I'm like, you're an idiot. No. First of all, that's not how police work. What did he, so in like this last episode, Scott said was like, A, that's not how the law works, and B, and I just feel like that's a little bit of how I feel with Laura right now. She's starting to become that for me. So I'm hoping they can fix that.
I can see that.
Like either she needs to decide that she wants to be a cop and then investigate, or what, but I don't need her to be like a vet who investigates crimes.
Mm-hmm. So her ex-husband is named Grady.
Yeah, he is.
And he is somebody that we know and love. Was our first celebrity interview on this podcast. It's Paul Campbell, which is kind of crazy that he would play two characters who are super like relaxed or whatever you want to call it, that are both named Grady.
He's so funny. And the thing is, I was just watching the show, and then all of a sudden there was a surprise.
You didn't know?
Paul Campbell? No.
Oh, so we all knew.
I almost died.
Because he did a watch along in oh gosh, it was in May or April, I can't remember. But anyway, he did a watch along with us, and we watched Surprised by Love, where his character is named Grady. Anyway, and so then he told us all about Tuner and Hooch. And so anyway, we all of us patrons, which you can sign up for and participate in the watch alongs, check it out in the description. We have so much fun at the watch alongs. And anyway, we watched Surprised by Love with Paul Campbell, and that was super fun. And so yeah, I was because he had billed it as, I play a cop, and really, like, I would say he's like 10% cop, 90% ex-husband, at least so far.
Yeah, so far, but I can imagine that as we start doing more stuff in his jurisdiction, right? Because he's basically walking the same beat as their dad. So anything that they're investigating is going to be in his neck of the woods. Mm-hmm. He'll be the person who will ultimately end up being the arresting officer, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to become more and more involved, and we're going to see him and Laura more interacting. Mm-hmm. And so that was really fun. He did a great job, of course, because he's great.
And so the thing I want to talk, because a lot of this show has been a lot of me realizing like the importance of advocating for yourself, which I guess is crazy. I feel like their relationship is a good study in that Laura, it seems, has not been advocating for herself, was not really advocating for herself in that relationship,
right? And
because she didn't do that, she was resented Grady for all this stuff that he wasn't doing. But at the end of the day, like, if you don't tell people what you need, obviously you can't expect them to fulfill that need. And I think vice versa, like, mm-hmm. I mean, if she needs him to be someone who, steps up or whatever, she needs to communicate with that. And then at that point, if he doesn't listen, obviously that's all on him. But you need to, I think self-advocating is probably the mm-hmm. best thing that anyone can do for themselves.
It's true. We can't assume that people are mind readers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. So there are a couple other characters. There's Detective Menendez or Sheriff. I don't know what his title is, but anyway, Anthony Ruvivar. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he is hilarious. I really like him because Hooch loves him. He gets so annoyed. He's like, "You're ruining my suit. Please don't." I think he's funny. He plays Scott's boss, basically.
He's great as the like chief, right? Because he's not
chief. That's the word.
Do they call him chief?
I don't think.
But he's essentially the chief role. Like if this was just a regular police department, he's the chief. He's the guy who gives out cases and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And he does a great job. And sort of a twist on the traditional chief role, where the chief is either like, is usually like super grumpy and like super harsh, or like doesn't get it and doesn't understand or whatever. And that's usually why the cop who we focus on has to go like off the books a little bit, Well, that's typically what we see in chiefs.
Yeah, for sure.
But I feel like as a chief, like he really gets it. And I also appreciate that they show him like sort of understanding where people are coming from, but also that he sort of is hindered by the politics of it all, right? Like he has to, like, even he's susceptible to like Trent the jerky Marshall's like flattery and things like that, and he, you know, he has his like higher ups that he has to follow up through. So when there's things that like Scott does that is a little bit off and he doesn't love it, his higher ups are like, no, this is great, and he's like, so I guess it's great. I appreciate I feel like there's a lot, like obviously it's sort of like a heightened version of reality, this show, but I feel like it's grounded in a lot of realism, which I think is part of the reason why it works.
And the emotion and the relationships are real, I think are realistic. Maybe the cases aren't particularly realistic, but it doesn't really matter if it's just like, I mean, I love Drop Dead Diva and the cases were ridiculous on that show, but I love the characters. And I did relate to a lot of what the characters were experiencing, even though it had the supernatural kind of component to it. And so I think it's the same kind of dynamic in the way as far as is you relating to the characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And so, yes, then we also have Xavier, and
who I love.
He's really funny. He is one of the other agents. And once Jess gets grounded, then Scott has to work with Xavier. And he's like your really chill, probably pot smoking who is engaged to a woman named Olivia. And he's very funny, very good.
Yeah, honestly, I love everything about him. Mm-hmm. I love his relationship with his fiance. Like, they're so funny. I would watch an entire show just about them solving crimes together, being hilarious. But I think I really think he's great for Scott. It's like, if this is a hero's journey for Scott, right? He'd basically be the Gandalf or the Dumbledore, you know. Obviously he's not like that old or whatever, but he's sort of like the sage wisdom guy who leaves sort of open-ended or like vague guidance that ultimately sees Scott through the day. So I think as far as like a story device, he tells a great story, but even in that, I think his character is still grounded in reality. Like, I don't think he's just like a caricature of himself, but in a way he is. I don't know how to describe what I feel about him, but I just love everything about him. I think he's perfect.
He doesn't have any sort of social restraints. He just is who he is.
Yeah.
And that's always, like, in real life, it would be super frustrating. But as a character on a show, it's pretty fun.
I mean, except for he's supportive, right? He's not like a selfish person who doesn't have any social like restraints. It's sort of like he's operating on a higher level than everyone else.
Yeah.
Because he's the opposite of the chief, right? I mean, they're kind of two sides of the same coin, wherein they both do a good job, they get it. Whereas the chief fully understands the politics of all of it, and he like plays that game. Xavier does not deal with any of the politics.
Right. Yeah.
He's not in it to, you know, advance his career necessarily. Like, obviously he probably has goals career wise, but if he has to like play a lame game to get there, I don't think he would play that game.
Right.
And unfortunately, the structure of our society is that if you don't play the game, you're not going to get as far as you want to go. But
true.
Maybe fictional society will work different.
Last person is Matt Hamilton, Matt Hamilton plays Trent. Yeah. And he has been in tons of Hallmark movies. He's almost always the wrong guy in almost every single Hallmark movie. And I think that he has that down. He's been in a couple or Tea Gardens. He's been in tons of Hallmark movies. And I think he's got that role of kind of the show off, and he does that really well, I think, actually.
Yeah. And the thing is about him, of all the characters that we've seen, literally of all the characters that we've seen, he's the most one note.
Yeah.
And I think that's by design. Obviously, he's a good enemy, as it were, or but I hope that as the show progresses, we get a little bit of a different side to him, because no one in life is one-sided.
Right.
No one in life is one note.
Like it works to have the bad men of business for a Hallmark movie because they're not the focus of the movie. You just need to get them in and out and get the character on with going back to the small town, right? So you just need it to be that kind of stark thing. It works. But for a show, if a character is going to be in repeatedly, you need to have some character growth.
Which is part of the reason why I think I like television so much more than movies for the most part. And I think it's just because how I love secondary characters and all that stuff. I like being able to breathe with the characters, to be able to see a character from episode 1 to where they are, in the series finale, and go like, look at how far they've come. Even if it's like a character who doesn't really grow that much, but you still sort of get to know them more, even if because there are people who don't change, like even despite a bunch of different situations, sometimes people just don't change.
Right.
I mean, sometimes people just don't grow. It's a part of life, is that other people cannot grow, but you should always be striving to grow anyway. But I think it's very important in a TV show, and it's something that TV shows allow you to do, is that even the smallest characters who you see more than once, you get to know them more, because every storyline in every episode is a little different. So even if you're just seeing them, but like Trent, we've seen him twice now. Even though it's been kind of one note, or like one song, right? We've heard different notes from him. We've seen him react in this situation and how he reacts in this situation, which informs more about how we feel about this character. And hopefully we'll get to know, like, why is this character the way that this character is?
Yeah. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast.
Terry Ferris, author of You Belong With Me and Until I Met You, returns readers to the charming town of Heritage, Michigan in the Restoring Heritage series finale.
Fans have enjoyed immersing themselves in the complicated, funny, and endearing lives of this small town.
And Since You've Been Gone, Ferris offers another romantic tale where sparks fly when two people at odds in the past must learn to trust each other to ensure a better future.
Not only do you get one great romance in Since You've Been Gone, but it also has a sweet secondary relationship, which includes themes of faith, forgiveness, and love.
Pick up Since You've Been Gone wherever you purchase your books, or use our affiliate link.
For more information on the Restoring Heritage series, visit https://www.terryferris.com/books.
That's www.terryferris.com/books.
Let's talk about the episodes. So this will be kind of spoilery. So if you haven't seen these 5 episodes and you don't want any spoilers, then, just know that we like the show and you can stop from here. But we'll dive into a little bit. So the pilot is called Forever and a Dog. And this is obviously your setup.
I know I'm so ridiculous. I think the titles are so funny. I feel so stupid every time, but every time I see an episode title, I'm like, nailed it. That's a good one.
Yeah. They especially the second one. We'll talk about that.
The second one.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff.
Okay, so this is your pilot setting up the whole idea of the show, obviously. And you have him get the dog, and the dog is a nightmare, destroys his apartment, including his robot. And
rest in peace, Broomy.
There is a guy on witness protection that they're trying to help. And they have a agent there, Agent Long, who's played by Hallmark regular Matthew McCall, who I always really like him. And we get to introduce all the characters to Erica. And she says at one point, you probably have tons of girlfriends.
I know, she's so funny. She's so awkward. I think I also love that about her. Like, she's like super nice and like super funny, but also she's like a total mess.
Yeah. She says, people see what they think they should see, but dogs see what's there. Which is very cute. He also has a letter from his dad. And he kind of is hesitant to read it at first. And then it says, everything I cared about started with a dog.
Yeah.
It's cute. Very cute. And then that they figure through different things, they figure that Hooch, maybe he was barking at the agent, not the lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start to get, they suspect Agent Long, start to suspect him. And then there is a bank heist, and they're going to shoot the agent, and the bank heist are going to shoot the witness. And basically, Agent Long is bitter because he feels like he spent years and years trying to track down this guy who did all this terrible stuff. And now this guy's getting this witness protection and getting all of the perks, and he's hardly got anything, for what he did. What did you think of as far as the case in this one?
I'm going to be honest. The cases, for the most part, I don't even care about. Because for me, it's about the characters, right?
Yeah.
But the cases, I think, are interesting in that they, like I said, they allow us to see the characters in different situations. And I think as a first episode, it's really a good sort of a metaphor for the journey Scott goes on in the episode, wherein you think that, the agent is just like, obviously like a by the books guy or whatever, and then it turns out he's not. It's sort of a metaphor for Scott, where we start out seeing him as this like buttoned down, play by the rules guy, and we figure out that he's better off somewhere else, which I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. There's sort of like once again, they're the opposite sides of the same coin. So I think that's interesting. But I think as far as the stories go, this one's probably the one that I liked the least as far as the cases. But I think it was actually a very good first case. It wasn't very complicated, but it allowed us and gave us the room to introduce all of the characters that we need. As far as like exposition goes, I think it serves the storyline very well.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that it did the job that needed to do. So what would you give this one if you're saying 1 to 10?
For like the case? The case,
the episode as a whole.
But the episode as a whole, honestly, I'd say it's probably like a 7.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that.
I wasn't sold on the show on the first episode. I'm gonna be like, I was just still watching it.
Yeah, I feel like that's always the case. She's got to power through the pilot.
Yeah, I mean, I have a 4-episode rule where I will give any show, unless I absolutely hate it, 4 episodes to sell me on itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because by the time you get to the 4th episode, you should really know what the show's going to be. I
agree. There's a few shows that like just hit it out of the park with the pilot, like the Nanny's pilot is, I think, perfect.
Well, sure, but I'm not going to quit on a show if I see it has some potential until the 4th episode.
Yeah, I think that's a good rule. Very good. All right, then episode 2 is A Good Day to Dog Hard.
Which honestly, this is where I got sold. I said, sold, sir. I'm sold.
I think this is the best episode of the 5.
As definitely case-wise.
Yeah. So Scott and Hooch babysit a diplomat's daughter and wind up saving the Olympic Committee. So this, you can tell by the title that this was a almost parody of Die Hard, even to the point of him wearing the tank, the white tank.
The tank and having his foot cut on by glass.
Yeah.
With a machine gun. And so I didn't actually pay attention to the episode titles until after this episode. So I actually was taken a little bit by surprise by the Die Hard of it all. Mm-hmm. And when they got to the point where he was like, he cut his foot on the thing.
Yeah.
And he was in the tank top, I went, oh my goodness, is this a Die Hard episode? And I was dying. I was so excited. And I think they did a great job of setting up the Die Hard parallels without being like too over the top.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like inappropriate because obviously Die Hard is an R-rated film,
Yeah.
but there were just those homages that will entertain those who have seen Die Hard. But there's nothing in it that like people won't enjoy it if they haven't seen Die Hard.
Yeah. And him calling him cowboy, funny. And then
Yeah.
when he says, "Yippee, Kaya's in trouble,"
Yes.
I died. It was so funny.
I also loved when he's like, I don't eat carbs. What is this?
Yeah, it's
That's
so
really funny.
it's it was a really good, it was a great Die Hard episode. I think
Mhm.
probably, shows often do a Die Hard episode. Mostly because it's just such an easy, I mean, they didn't do it as a bottle episode, but because for a show, having a Die Hard themed episode or whatever is good because it's sort of a bottle episode. You really only have to have the like one location.
True.
But they went to different locations for this episode, so that's not why they did it. They made an intentional choice, like, we're going Die Hard episode 2, and everyone was like, yeah, we are. But I think I just really like it because it was fun, and it didn't really teach us anything about Scott himself as far as the episode goes, but it allowed us to know that the show was willing to be silly.
Right. Well, and it just does such a good job of making him the underdog that you could really root for. Not that we hadn't in the first episode, but when the reason why some of the later Die Hard movies are no good is because they made him too powerful. He's not the underdog anymore. He's not the cop just trying to have a regular day, and he gets caught up in this craziness. And that's what makes the Die Hard movies good. And so when you can capture that in this character, it's very appealing.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, the use of the dog in the show it really is the first time that Scott truly uses Hooch in an interesting way. Using him to fetch the shoe when he's taking out all the cameras was a brilliant use of having a dog in a way that's not a typical way that you would think of using a dog in a canine unit.
Yeah. And I should say, so this show the pilot was directed by Mick G, and the whole show is produced and created by Mick G. And I think you can tell because Mick G is a filmmaker who makes a lot of kind of pulp action type movies like Charlie's Angels and things like that. And I think he brings, because it's pretty violent, more than I was expecting for a Disney Plus show.
Yeah, and then I think also, didn't he also do the OC? Didn't he also produce the OC, or am I wrong?
I don't know.
He did. I just found him. Yeah, so he did the OC. So I think that, and also he did The Duff, which he produced The Duff, which are two shows that I really like as far as like, the teen experience, which is not what we're having here, but they're both quite humorous. They have a lot of pop culture references in the OC. And I think he brings that sort of element to his work where there's always just like a level of fun. And maybe that's why I think it's just really well done, the whole show.
And he produced Chuck, which also is another show with that kind of
you know
dynamic.
What? Now that you say that, and I probably should have known that, it does, at least all of the police aspects, all of the like case stuff does feel very Chuck.
Yeah.
In the just like in like the action elements, the scenes where it'll be, like these guys are doing like, just like in this episode where they had all of the like dogs walking all cool with their handlers, and then they had Scott being pulled along by Hooch. Like it was the like, I'm awesome, and then a button of humor.
Yeah, so basically the Olympic Committee is there. Then there's these terrorists who are going to take over and take them hostage in order to get what they want. One of the heads of the Olympic Committee has a little daughter, and they are assigned to watch the daughter, and the hostages take over when he's up having tea with the daughter. And it plays out like a like a Die Hard kind of story. And at one point he has a machine gun. He's like, I got a machine gun.
Yeah, so funny.
Yes.
So good.
They also at the very end, Hooch finds their dad's watch at the park. So that kind of continues on that story. Like, well, what was the watch doing there? What are, we're kind of trying to put the clues together there. So yeah, this one was really good. I liked this episode a lot. And also we also get a little dynamic because you have Trent on the A team and you have Scott on the B team, and he doesn't like that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it does show you a bit of one of Scott's flaws, and you gotta love when you have a main character with flaws,
right?
Which is that he wants external approval. He wants the glory. He wants the he wants to be on the A team.
Yeah. So what would you give this episode 1 to 10?
I would have said 9, but I will say that the little girl was like a little bit of a brat for me. So that's kind of an issue for me. So I'm going to only give it an 8.5 probably.
Yeah, I think you kind of need her to be, though, in order for
for him to get into the different scenarios. But
yeah,
it was just a little
irritating. Yeah.
I feel like there's a way to service that story without needing to just resort to the easy option of her being spoiled.
Yeah. All right. I will give it, I'll agree with you. I'll give it 8.5. But
let's go.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Episode 3. So 3, Diamonds Are Forever. Scott tracks down a notorious jewel thief, and Hooch gets obsessed with a squeaky toy. I liked the beginning of this episode when Erica is running with him.
She's the best. Do you have any idea how many times in my life I have pretended like I enjoy something like exercise, literally just exercise. I enjoy most other things, to be like, try to impress a guy. It's like, I'm on a hike. No, I don't hate this. This is great. Guy I'm interested in. No, it's the
She's
worst.
Like, maybe we should take an Uber back.
She's she's the best.
And so then we also have Trent getting an award. And so that's something that he's really jealous about. Scott ends up having to work with Trent. They are trying to find this jewel thief, Krista St. Jean, who's very, very sneaky, as most jewel thieves are.
Yes.
And then we have him helping his nephew with this volcano project. And it did kind of exhaust me that Hooch destroyed it 3 times. I was like, oh.
Like at a certain point, how about when you're done, you don't just give it to the kid?
Right.
Like put it on top of the fridge, guys.
Yeah. Put it away. Put it in the car if you have to. Like, put it away. That was stressful.
Yeah.
Oh no. But yeah, and then Hooch has this squeaky toy, and it is just so loud and driving Scott crazy.
Well, okay. The squeaky toy is the best thing in the whole world because it's a red herring. As in a red herring.
Right. When you have animals, you must relate to this a little bit, at least, of like them driving you crazy.
I only have one animal.
Oh, okay.
Luna died.
So
I mean, honestly, I had a terrible year. But I have Piper, and she is irritating, but she doesn't really have like toys that make noise. Cats don't really do the noise thing.
Yeah. Well, so he found the toy when trying to find this jewel thief, and basically Erica tells him that the dogs for dogs, play and work are the same thing. So you have to just tell them what you want, and then follow them. Basically, is how it is.
Yeah.
And basically, they find Krista St. Jean at the airport, and there's quite the little like shoot off that happens. Yeah. And then this is where you have this with Laura going to confront the criminal to get the files.
I was so annoyed. I really is so annoying. Just like, don't do things like that.
Yeah, it's probably not wise to do.
PSA to anyone listening: if you suspect that there's some crime going on, don't go investigate it yourself.
Right.
Not only are you in danger if there is, but if there is something going on, the police can't use any of the information you get.
Yeah, you would have liked it on this last Aurora Tea Garden. Lynn played Miranda Frigon she's one of the agents. She finally just lost it on Aurora and did this huge speech about how Aurora is a puzzle solver and puzzle solvers are great, but if she spent all her time following every single puzzle, then she would never get anything done. And it was a good moment. It was
well, and not only that,
liked it.
Like, you are not allowed to just go spy on people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to get a warrant. There's like laws and rules and constitutional stuff involved. Right. And like Miranda rights and things, like, guys.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that I don't think that the
rules of evidence are important.
Right. But I think that you don't have to have a warrant if you're a private citizen looking into something, but the way that an officer would. But nevertheless, you're certainly putting yourself in peril, and you don't have the skills.
But in order for them to use it in a criminal prosecution, it has to be obtained legally. There's like certain where the evidence needs to be obtained in a certain fashion. Right. Unless it's like public records that you're looking into, like, then whatever.
Mm-hmm. Or you're just like a random witness.
Sure.
That's one thing. But anyway, yeah, so she does end up not doing it, which is good. He's like, what are you doing? And then we also see Trent, of course, takes all the credit, even though he wasn't even like at the airport at all.
He literally swooped in.
Yeah. And then you have our first appearance of Brooke at the end of the episode.
I was a little bit like, is that Becca Tobin? That was me watching the show. Yeah. Is that Becca Tobin? And it was.
Yeah. So, well, what would you give this one, 1 to 10?
Honestly, I do think this one was. I thought this episode was pretty good. The red herring thing made me laugh so hard. It's like just the small things in life that make me happy.
Yeah.
I would probably give this like an 8.4. I thought it was a really good episode. Very solid.
Mm-hmm. I'll give it an 8 because I did like the Die Hard one better. But all right. So then episode 4, we have In the Line of Fur.
Yeah. On the Line of Fur.
Scott attempts to impress his ex-girlfriend when he and Hooch are assigned to protect a grumpy judge from a mob assassin. And that pretty much says it all. This was the first appearance of Paul Campbell, though, in this episode.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And he's really, as we said, he's really relaxed. He really wants to play video games and hang out. And he puts Laura in the position of sort of being the bad cop a lot of times, in her eyes at least, because she wants to get things done. And he's like, no, we should go to breakfast. We should play video games, the kind of thing. And of course, the son wants to do all those fun things.
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, we don't know the dynamic of the relationship before the divorce. Like, if it was like this all the time, obviously that's super frustrating. But I can understand, like, if you are a parent and you only have your kid sometimes, you want to do fun things with your kid during those times.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's why I was jealous of my friends that had divorced parents, because they got to always do all this fun stuff on the weekends, and we had to do Saturday chores.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's not necessarily like right, but I understand why that would be the approach. But I mean, for example, but with the playing the video games thing, where Laura ends up staying and playing the games with them and blows off her whole day and doesn't do any of the stuff she was supposed to do, that's not Grady's fault. Like if someone invites you to do something and then you choose to do it and blow off your other responsibilities, that's not on Grady. And I think that's good that she ultimately does take responsibility for that. She's like, I mean, it is my fault, but I need you to help me out here. Like, I think the fight they had at the end was actually very productive.
Yeah. And he does end up bringing the docs at the end, which is what she wanted all along. So he does come through in the end. And you have him asking Brooke, you have Scott asking Brooke on a date. And this is the same place that he had wanted to take her before, but things just went wrong. And so there's this fancy French restaurant. He ends up putting gel in his hair, and everybody keeps commenting, which I thought was funny. He's like, oh, the gel.
Is that this one? I thought that was the next one.
I wrote it on my notes. He changed his hair gel, LOL.
Oh, he did change his hair gel.
Yeah.
You're right. Sorry.
And this judge, he is a lot.
Okay, he is beyond ridiculous. And he is like, okay, I just need to complain. Like, he's obviously
right. The date is in the next episode. I messed that up. That date is the next one.
He's a terrible judge, because if he doesn't know the rules that he's like not allowed to send people to do this kind of thing as a federal judge, like, he's not a good judge. Like, the whole point of the judge is they're supposed to know the laws and like refer to laws.
And even after there's a sniper incident, he still is being like, why are you doing this? Why are you treating him like, if I would think that especially that would be like, okay, I need to not be so difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's the thing. Like, him starting out that way was irritating. Him staying that way, unbelievable.
Yeah, because after the sniper incident, he makes them go do trash duty, and it's like, they just saved your life.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And like sending them back for hot sauce, like, bro, if you like hot sauce that much, why don't you have a whole store of it at your house?
Right.
I couldn't deal with him, even for one episode.
Yeah, he does end up being able to spray the hot sauce on he uses the hot sauce in defense.
Yeah, sure, but it was just, I don't know. That that would hurt like a Dickens, but
yeah,
I don't know. The thing
the
about
judge was a lot. I'll grant you that, definitely. Yeah. And
the judge was a lot, and I just hated it. Which is, I think you're supposed to hate it because you're like not supposed to enjoy doing judge duty or whatever. But this episode really was only the whole point of the episode was that Scott was going to spend time with the Brooke character.
Yes, and he gets a hug from her at the end, which was pretty, was a big moment. And also, this is his first time working with Xavier.
Oh yeah,
so that was pretty fun too.
And his
surfing wisdom.
Yes. But the whole point, the whole best part of the episode was obviously at the end when Erica comes, because Erica helps him figure out that it's the transceiver or whatever, and then at the end she comes to check on everyone, and there's the like Erica versus Brooke nice off, like, oh my gosh, you're so pretty. No, you're so pretty.
Yeah, because Erica figures out that there's the tracker is in the judge's robes or whatever.
Yeah.
So what would you give this one 1 to 10?
I'm gonna give this one like a 7.
I think that's fair. All right, last one, Road to Smell Dorado.
Yes.
Scott, Hooch, and Xavier search for a fugitive in the quirky small town of El Dorado. So it's actually this one, I misspoke. This is the one where he invites Brooke to the French dinner.
Yes.
And
so this episode just made me like so irritated with Scott, honestly.
Really? Because I felt a little bit bad for him, because I mean, it's not unreasonable for him to expect to want to be able to go on this date that he had planned. And then Xavier just kept like just putting one more thing and not caring about that. And
I guess the thing that's irritating me about Scott is that it's reaching the point of, how do you not realize that Erica has feelings for you? Like, I just think it's starting to strain credulity that he's this dense.
Well, that's such a classic dynamic though, of like, again, like Jim and Pam, like Pam is so oblivious for so long,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It's like, how do you not know?
And he ditched on Erica. I just was irritated. I started getting
Yeah.
irritated because he blew off Erica at the beginning. Um, and also the first thing is Laura is staking out that guy's house.
Yes. I did like that. He says you're all hopped up on juice boxes and I don't like it.
Yeah. And then he's like, wait outside. And she's like, I waited for 10 Mississippis. How many Mississippis am I expected to wait? How about when you stop counting things in Mississippis, you're allowed to go into a potentially dangerous situation?
What did you think of the whole dynamic though between Laura and the girl from high school?
I actually really like that. So as we've talked about, I was kind of a bully in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
Like not like a physical bully, and I was very similar to the Laura situation, where I was like never outwardly rude to anyone, but I like wasn't nice. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of felt that. So I kind of understood where Laura was coming from in that situation, as far as like feeling bad and realizing like you should have been better. But also I was like, what, 10? So I need to stop beating myself up about this. At least when she was in high school, she should have known slightly better. Because, as you grow, you learn more. But everyone's always growing. So who am I to judge? Anyway, I really enjoyed that. I liked her getting to connect with this other girl, and I liked her sort of seeing with that, where all of the other people from her high school were like, all of them were at that one fish place for lunch, and she like knew everybody. And then the girl that she didn't know had this like rich, interesting life, and she would never have even known about it. And one line was actually so funny to me, where they were like, the girl who said her dad invented tie-dye, turns out actually kind of did. Like,
yeah.
And that's just like such a thing that the kids would like not believe. And then it actually is true. Hilarious.
It kind of reminded me of Lisa and I were just talking about How to Fall in Love for On Friendship. And and in that one, the Brooke D'Orsay character doesn't realize that she had hurt Eric Mabius's character in that way in high school. She was just sort of being, a kid in high school. Like she had no idea that she was being so hurtful. She was 15, but it did. And she realized it, obviously. And it's kind of a similar dynamic.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing though. Once you grow and mature and you have an opportunity to do better, or to be better, or to, try to express remorse or make amends, or whatever. Once you have that opportunity and the realization that you've done something wrong, if you don't take it, that's when you're a jerk.
Right. Yeah.
And Laura took that opportunity to make things better. And not only
ask,
that,
do you have a go-to karaoke song? That's your song?
I do. It is La Bamba.
Okay. Mine is Wide Open Spaces from the Dixie Chicks. That's a song that's right in my range. I know I can nail.
So this is the thing about karaoke for me. Nobody likes sitting. In my opinion, nobody likes sitting there and listening to someone sing a ballad for like 5 minutes, because all ballads are super long. That's true. So, and like, especially if the person's not like super great, but they think they're super great, it's just like long and awful. And like, why? I want karaoke to be like a party. And so like anytime there's like a group of people singing, karaoke's great. Because it's at least those people are having fun, even if everyone else isn't. But like La Bamba, if you're by yourself, like everybody can have fun with La Bamba. Right. And it's like super short. It's a super short song.
Oh, that's true. I Will Survive is a fun one that always.
Yeah. If you want like to pump people up, like the people who sing like long ballads and they do like lots of vocal runs. I'm like, bro, this is karaoke. This is not open mic night. Yeah.
You don't want someone let the cake out in the rain.
No. I don't know. Maybe I'm rude. Maybe I'm a jerk, but that's just how I feel about karaoke. It should be a party.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a talent show.
Yeah. And if you have seen the new Shang-Chi,
I have not.
A very funny karaoke element in the movie. An aside. But anyway, so Hooch ends up getting skunked in this episode.
Yes.
And everyone keeps telling Scott, you got to use tomato juice, tomato juice, tomato juice. So he spends $517 on tomato juice.
Yeah, on his fancy Lodge tomato juice.
Yeah. And it doesn't work. And so that's when you do get the kind of cute scene at the end with Brooke and Scott using the remover soap.
Scott say it was like The Shining in there because there was all the tomato juice everywhere?
It really did look like it.
It was so funny. That was such a good set up in line, top drawer. Way to go.
Yeah. And so then they end up looking into this whole situation, and there's this counterfeit ring that's part of this gallery. And there's this point where Xavier ends up getting shot by the gallery owner, but he has a bulletproof vest. So
I wasn't worried about it because this show is rated G, right? It's not even rated PG, is it?
It's got to be PG. It's got to be with the amount of action and violence. I would be surprised.
Oh, no, it is PG. It is PG. Yeah. But I was like, he's not dead. He's got a vest on. I'm not worried.
Yeah. Well, and he's such a new character, but nevertheless, the show was a little bit more violent than I expected it to be. It's fine, but I just don't expect to see that from Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So,
but I really liked it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was, the cases, right? You know who the bad guy is.
Sure.
And that's because the cases are very simple and the mysteries are very simple. And I think that's by design because they're not supposed to be, this isn't CSI where you're oh, who did it? It's the stories are a vehicle to drive us to where we want our characters to go, but not even, it's not even like that. It's like those people movers they have at the airport, right? It's not even like it's just they help you walk a little faster. That's sort of what the cases are. And I think they need to keep them fairly simple and not complex so that families who watch it together, because you can watch this with your kids, it's not inappropriate,
right?
That the kids watching can still understand the story.
Yeah. And so then we have a dinner with this girl, Natalie, and her boss, who they had been spying on earlier in the show. And he basically says, your dad was investigating more than me.
Yeah.
There was more. So that kind of leads us into more. And then Natalie quits working for him. And we get this other dinner between Jessica, Darius, who's Jess's husband. And they both basically say to Erica, you like Scott, you need to do something. You need to put it out there. And so she's going to. And then we get the scene with Brooke and Scott cleaning Hooch. And you see on the phone, you see Erica is trying to call. So,
what is going to happen? Who knows? Find out when we watch the rest of the episodes.
That's right. So, what would you give this episode?
I actually really love this episode. I'm going to give this episode an 8.
I think that's good. Yeah, because this episode had a lot of production too. They spent money on this show, and particularly in this episode, you had the airport, the plane, the speeding chase. There's some action set pieces in here that weren't cheap.
No, and I don't think it's money wasted because I think it helps the whole story feel richer. Not necessarily looks like they spent money richer, but what I mean. You get it.
I agree. So there we go. That's the 5 episodes. Let us know what you think of this show, of the characters, of the 5 episodes. We want to hear your thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter. And it's so great to have you back, Amber. It was so much fun. I'm excited to recap the rest of it. But I love getting a chance to podcast with you whenever I can.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. And I've been sort of feeling like I just wish I had something I wanted to talk about. The thing is, I've just been so apathetic about everything for ever. And then this show was like, it speaks to my soul.
I'm so glad. Well, how can people follow you on social media, all that fun stuff?
I mean, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Amber Brainwaves, but really, unless you're interested in the Utah Jazz or BYU football, you're probably not going to want to follow me on Instagram or on Twitter. So,
well, we'll put it in the description anyway. And you can follow me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. And make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod, Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We appreciate that so much. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and consider joining the Patreon. We have the patron watch alongs with people like Paul Campbell every month. This month, we are doing one just this week, this Friday. Our patron watch along is with Brittany Bristow, and we're watching Love, Romance, and Chocolate. And that's going to be super fun. So if you want to have the opportunity to join in on the patron watch alongs and the other activities in our Facebook group, it's only $2 a month. It's super cheap. It's great. Please take a look. We would really appreciate it. And then we also have our merch store, which has tons of fun designs, and we're going to have some really fun stuff for Christmas coming up. So make sure that you check that out. And thanks so much again, Amber, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.